In this video, I'll show you how I painted this Primaris Chaplain on bike. Hello everyone, this is Jason from Warhammer Gaming, and for this video, I'll be painting this Primaris Chaplain on bike for my Dark Angels ravenwing. So, as you can see, I've decided to paint this model in pieces, which should hopefully allow me to get to the harder to reach areas to paint. Anyways, looking forward to seeing how this turns out, so without further ado, let's get going. So the first thing that I did prior to recording this video is prime the model using Grey Seer spray paint. Next, we're going to paint the following areas with Leadbelcher. The frame that's around this skeleton on the chest, most of the areas under the armor plating, such as the area where the marine sits, the exhaust pipes, the rims on the tire, and the little circle that's above the rim, the handlebar except for where the marine grips the bar, the handle of the gun in the holster here, the bottom half of the bolters on the front, plus the gun barrels, as well as the ammo feeder on the side, and the chains and lock that's on this book. Okay, so just a couple of notes. I accidentally painted the grip on the handlebar. I wasn't supposed to, but that's okay. I'll be painting it in Khorne Red later. I also painted this chain here, and these symbols attached to the chain in Leadbelcher. Next, we're going to use Abaddon Black to paint the following areas. Most of the Space Marine armor plating, except for areas such as the gaps in between the armor, the mask, as well as the trim that's around areas of the armor. And of course, we'll be painting the armor plating on the bike. So just a quick note, after the Abaddon Black dried, I just painted the pipes and the earpiece around the head in Leadbelcher. Now we're going to use Corvus Black to paint the following areas: the tires on the bike, the gaps in the armor such as at the elbows and here on the knees, and the exhaust port vents on the backpack. Please note that after I paint the exhaust port vents, I'm going to dry brush the edges with Leadbelcher. Next, I'll be using Mournfang Brown to paint any leather-like areas such as the belt around the waist and around the arms, this leather piece at the bottom of the handle, the gun holster, the leather part of this bookmark, the seat cushions, this square pouch on the back, and these leather straps holding this cylinder. Also, once the Mournfang Brown has dried, I'll be using Leadbelcher to paint the buckles such as around the waist and on the arms. Now we're going to use Khorne Red for the following areas: the handlebar of the Crozius, the bolter casing on the top half, the cover of the book except for the corners, the area where you grip the handlebar, and the cylinder here except for the top and bottom lids. Next, we're going to paint the exhaust casing with Brass Scorpion. Now we're going to use Retributor Armour to paint any skull and or halo symbol, not including the face mask, the metal part of the Crozarius, including this skeleton angel at the top, all armor trims, such as what's on the shoulder and on the knees and legs, the corners of this book, and the top and bottom lid of the cylinder. Alright, just a few things before we move on. First, I just realized that I didn't paint this handlebar grip here in Khorne Red, so I'm going to do that. Next, just to switch up the colors a bit, I'm going to paint this skull cross with Leadbelcher. Next, I think this piece here is part of a leather strap, so I'm going to paint that in Mournfang Brown, and then the end with Leadbelcher. Lastly, and I've been thinking about it, but I'm going to paint the front chest plate with Retributor Armour. Next, we're going to paint the face mask, the purity seals, and the pages in the book with Wraithbone. Oh, just one other thing, we're going to paint this parchment strip on the shoulder pad in Wraithbone as well. Next, we're going to paint the tops of the buttons that are on the handlebar with Corax White. Now we're going to paint the screen that's at the center of the handlebar with Warpstone Glow. In the next few steps, I'm going to be doing some edge highlighting as well as applying shade and contrast paints. However, before I do that, I need to go over the model and do some touch-ups on any errors that I've made. Alright, I think it looks a little bit cleaner now. Now we're going to edge highlight the Space Marine armor using Fenrisian Grey. Next, I'm going to edge highlight the armor plating on the bike using Dawnstone. Alright, before we move on, just a few things to note. First, there were a few areas where the edge highlight lines were a bit too thick, so I took some time, did some touch-ups to thin them out. Next, I earlier forgot to add in an edge highlight to this mohawk area of the helmet, so I added one in. Also, when I was putting on the Retributor Armour paint, forgot to do the headlights, so I did those as well. Next, we're going to add in a coat of Nuln Oil to the following areas. Any areas painted in Leadbelcher, Brass Scorpion, Khorne Red, and Mournfang Brown. Now we're going to apply Reikland Fleshshade to all the areas painted in Retributor Armour, except for the headlights at the front. Now we're going to apply a coat of Skeleton Horde to the paper part of the purity seals, the pages on the book, as well as the face mask, except for the eyes. So just a quick note, there was this parchment strip on the shoulder pad here that I forgot to mention that you need to paint in Skeleton Horde as well, but you saw in the video that I painted it, so don't forget about it. Next, we're going to paint some of the buttons on the handlebar using Frostheart and Dark Angel's Green contrast paint. Please note, if you want to use different colors for the buttons, feel free to do so. Next, we're going to use Blood Angel's Red to paint the following areas: the wax part of the purity seals, the remaining buttons on the handlebar, and then the eyes on the mask. Next, we're going to dry brush the tires using Stormvermin Fur. Okay, so at this point we've pretty much finished painting the bike and the chaplain. As such, the next thing that we need to paint is this base. So for the rock formation, we're going to use Dawnstone. For the top of the base around the rock formation, we're going to use Khorne Red. And then for the side of the base, we'll use Abaddon Black. Okay, so now that all the individual pieces have been painted, we can now assemble the model. Alright, and there we go. So now the last thing that we're going to do is base the model using Martian Ironcrust. So I'm going to add a layer of Ironcrust on the areas that I painted in Khorne Red on the base, as well as on the tires and the underside of the bike. The reason that I'm adding the Ironcrust onto the tires and the underside of the bike is because if the bike is driving across a red dusty surface, you would expect the bike to pick up some of that dust. Okay, so now we just have to wait around 18 to 24 hours for the Ironcrust to fully dry. Alright, the Ironcrust has dried and I think it looks pretty good. Alright, here's my painted Primaris Chaplain on bike, and as always I wanted to provide some commentary on it. As you can probably tell, this was a more difficult biker model to paint compared to the Outrider that I previously painted. It's a much busier model than the standard Outrider, with plenty of decorations on it, such as all the purity seals, the skull helmet, and the book strapped to the top of the bike. But honestly, the garishness of this model is definitely part of its appeal. Also, painting the model in pieces rather than all together did help to reduce the difficulty level of this model for me, and is probably something I'll do again in the future for models that are as busy as this one. In the end, I'm pretty satisfied with how this Chaplain on bike turned out, and I think it'll be a great addition to my Dark Angels Ravenwing company. Anyways, that's the end of my video, and I hope you enjoyed watching it. As always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and be sure to check out my other social media accounts in the description below. Until next time, this is Jason from Force Hammer Gaming, signing off.